All right, let's dive in. Today we're tackling something huge for a lot of learners, getting ready for the IELTS exam.
Yeah, it's a big one. And we've got some really great insights for this deep dive coming straight from a conversation with Laila and Ali Al-Hassawi.
Right. Ali Al-Hassawi, he's an IELTS teacher, 14 years experience, right? Working a lot with students in Basra, Iraq.
Exactly. So he sees the real-world challenges students face there day in, day out.
Okay, so our mission here is basically to unpack what they talked about, pull out the key strategies, the roadblocks, and, what Ali calls the big secret.
Yeah, it's about getting that practical stuff, the actionable things you can use for your own IELTS prep, no matter where you're starting from.
Think of it like getting, 14 years of classroom insight condensed down?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
They really cut through the noise, focusing on what actually moves the needle for student success.
So first things first, what's the big picture challenge Ali sees right at the start, the main feeling or misconception?
He says the feeling of just being stuck or totally overwhelmed, it's massive. And a huge myth he has to kind of bust constantly is this idea that you need this enormous vocabulary.
Oh, interesting. So it's not just about cramming words.
No, he sees students obsessed with complex words, but he insists that's not really the main key to unlocking the scores they need.
Right. That kind of goes against what all the people think, doesn't it? So if it's not just fancy words, where should the focus be? They talked about writing being tough.
Yeah, often the toughest. The main struggles he points to are organizing ideas logically and using the right kind of academic English.
Okay, so structure and appropriate language.
Exactly. Students might know words, but putting them together clearly, making a solid argument on paper, that's the hurdle.
And Layla had that great analogy, didn't she? Something like, you're not writing poetry.
You're building an argument. Yeah. It's about clarity and construction, not like flowery prose.
Makes sense. Build the case.
Right. And another point, a really basic one they highlighted, is that loads of students just don't grasp the difference between task 1 and task 2 in the writing.
Ah, okay. That's fundamental. Task 1 being the description, like a chart or graph.
Describing data, usually.
And task 2 is the essay, where you argue a point.
Exactly. And if you don't get what each task requires, you're kind of lost before you even start writing that argument.
Yeah, definitely. Understanding the specific job for each task is step 1. Okay, let's shift to reading. What's the crucial thing there, according to them?
The big message for reading is it's about technique. It's strategy, not just understanding every single word. Ollie really hammers home skimming, scanning, and time management.
Because the big trap is trying to read it all, understand everything deeply.
Precisely. And he says if you do that, you will run out of time, guaranteed.
So the counter strategy is?
Focus. Focus only on finding the specific information you need for that question. You're hunting for the answer, not like reading for pleasure.
Right, like a search mission, not a leisurely read. And they mentioned those true, false, not given questions. Everyone seems to hate those.
Yeah. They acknowledge they're tricky, definitely. But the message is they are beatable. It comes back to having the right technique for that specific question type. It's learnable.
Okay, so technique again. What about listening? What's the core advice there?
Ollie's advice is pretty simple, but really effective. Don't just listen. Predict.
Predict? How does that work?
It means you look at the questions before the audio starts. You try to anticipate, okay, what kind of answer am I listening for here? Is it a name, a number, a place, a reason?
So you're actively waiting for a certain type of information.
Exactly. It makes your listening much more focused, much more active rather than passive.
And he had that metaphor, didn't he, about Basra, the noise.
Yeah, really vivid. Building silence inside yourself, even with external noise. It's about training your focus, blocking out distractions, concentrating hard on the audio feed, mental discipline.
That paints a picture. And they also mention accents.
Oh, yeah. Very practical tip. Practice listening to different accents. British, Australian, American, Canadian, so you don't panic if you hear an accent you're not used to in the actual test.
Good call. Familiarity reduces panic. Okay, last skill. Speaking. Big hurdle for many is just nerves, right? Shyness.
Totally. Fear of making mistakes, feeling judged. Ali's core principle here is speak to be understood. That's the goal. Not necessarily to impress with perfect grammar or a flawless accent.
Just clear communication.
Can you get your message across effectively? That's what matters.
And how does he suggest people get more comfortable doing that?
Practice thinking in English. Try to cut out that step of translating in your head from your first language. Form the thoughts directly in English. It takes practice, obviously.
Makes sense. And they said something interesting about personality.
Yes, this is fascinating. Ali insists personality scores points. Being yourself, being authentic. It actually helps your score. Confidence, he says, isn't innate. You build it by doing it, by speaking.
So it pushes back against that idea you have to sound like a native speaker, erase your accent.
Completely. The source material is clear. Examiners want fluency, natural conversation, expressing your ideas with confidence, not perfect mimicry.
Okay, so we've gone through the skills. Writing is building arguments, reading is technique, listening is prediction, speaking is clear, confident communication. But Ali, after 14 years, he had this ultimate secret, didn't he?
He did, the culmination, you could say. And it's something, importantly, that you control entirely.
Okay, I'm listening. What is it?
The secret, he says.
Oh,
It's simple. Consistency beats talent.
consistency beats talent. Wow.
And he's seen it happen over and over.
He gave examples.
He talked about students who were, naturally bright, maybe picked things up quickly, but if they weren't consistent with practice, they sometimes failed.
Okay.
Whereas other students, maybe they seemed more average at the start, but they showed up every single day. They practiced. They were the ones who ultimately succeeded.
So it wasn't about just raw ability then.
Not mainly, no. It was the discipline. The commitment to daily practice, asking questions when they were stuck, not being afraid to make mistakes, and, crucially, learn from them.
Right. So it underlines there's no magic pill or quick fix you can just buy.
None. It really comes down to consistent effort, using those smart strategies we talked about, and maybe most importantly, believing you can improve, believing you're capable.
And they had that call to action, didn't they? A direct challenge.
Yeah, straight from Ali's experience. Don't wait to be ready. Start now.
Just start.
Just start. And they added, your journey starts with a single question.
Okay, so wrapping this up, this deep dive, drawing from Lila and Ali, gave us these really practical strategies for each IELTS skill. Writing as argument, reading as technique, listening as prediction, speaking as authentic communication.
And tying it all together, that really powerful insight, forged in Basra.
Yeah.
Consistency trumps talent. And these ideas, they aren't just for IELTS, are they? They apply to pretty much any big learning goal.
Yeah, anytime you're facing something challenging or feeling overwhelmed, that consistency piece really resonates.
Oh, absolutely.
So a final thought for everyone listening. If consistency really is more important than talent, what does that suggest to you about how you approach difficult learning tasks, not just exams, but anything? And thinking about Ali's challenge, what's the first single question you need to ask yourself to get your own journey started?